Everybody, welcome back to Drafty Toons, the Drafty Quarters production anime animation podcast. This week, we're doing yet another installment of Love, Death, and Robots, the Netflix original series. And this time, I have with me
Sara
and
Russell.
Nice. I wanted to be especially sure to get you guys on an episode together for these because in the groups that we are going to be covering, there are a lot of controversial themes that are explored. I thought they were more, I don't know what the word would be, progressive, because they really have a lot of like female empowerment, which is why I specifically wanted to have Sara on to talk about it, to get a female perspective rather than just three white dudes talking about stuff. Yeah, so I definitely wanted to have another perspective on this outside of our own. But from what I've been reading, there's also a little bit of controversy with the series as a whole. Apparently, there's a lot of people that are criticizing it for, I don't know if glorifying is the word, but a misuse of, like, they didn't like the way they used the female characters. They said that while they showed female characters and female empowerment was there, and some of the episodes were done well, they were complaining that there was gratuitous violence against women throughout the series, and was often misused in a way that didn't really explore it enough, I guess, for them. And this is all based off of a couple different articles I've read.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And then there was another one where it was complaining about the female nudity and saying that it was also like gratuitous and excessive, and it wasn't equal representation. Which I agree with what you're saying. I felt that there was just as much male nudity. The only thing I would say to their defense is the male nudity is often done for comedic effect. We actually talked about that in the episodes with Shane and Barry. So a lot of times the male nudity is just like a floppy penis, and it's used for comedy.
Whereas titties aren't funny.
All the female nudity is just kind of there, and it's more there for you to ogle at them, was what the article was saying, which I don't necessarily agree with. I'm fine with nudity all around, equal representation. Let's show naked people. That's perfectly fine.
Let's see all the dicks.
All the dicks. All the tits,
boobs. Yeah, let's do it.
All the vaginas.
I'm all about it.
You can have
all
both.
the nudity.
Yeah. I want equal representation.
Yeah.
I understand where they're coming from, because there isn't a whole lot of shows that you watch that has the same amount of violence toward women as it typically does men. Now, I know as men, we are the more violent side of the species.
Arguably so, yeah.
Yeah. Most serial killers end up being men, or women are better at hiding it. Who's to say?
Sure.
But this series overall, as I've already watched it all the way through prior to this.
As have I.
Same.
I would say is very equal in its violence and its presentation. I would kind of agree with the ogling, because most of the feminine nudity is sexualized.
Yeah.
It's typically takes place in scenes where there is some sort of sexual tension going on. Mm-hmm. Now, if I recall correctly, there are a couple episodes where it's just a chick and she's in either like a see-through shirt, or she just doesn't have a shirt on for the scene.
Sure.
And maybe she's getting ready, but we'll see what happens as we watch these episodes.
Yeah, and since you bring that up, I don't remember seeing any men throughout the series at all being sexual in nature for them. Like, none of their nudity was ever sexualized.
No.
They were just naked.
Just alternative histories where you finally see an erect penis
Yeah. Yeah, that was even in those episodes. That was the only instance of an erect penis throughout the series that I remember.
Yeah.
And then all the rest of them were just floppy cocks for comedic effect.
Yeah.
Floppy cock.
But, you know, I mean, with that being said, like, if you're going to create a platform like an anthology, you also aren't looking at it as a whole.
Yeah.
So you're not trying to get everything in the whole picture. You're trying to make sure each individual story is taken care of and written appropriately and animated correctly.
Yeah. And they were each probably done by their own team.
Yeah.
I seriously doubt they were all done by the same group of people.
Yeah, and per the episodes that have, you know, male violence or males fighting demons or whatever, there's still, I do believe, more violence toward men, whether it be men versus men, than what I can recall in the more feminine episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I know, so like I have one of the articles I found pulled up here. And a quote that they have is, we see women's bodies in disturbing, threatening scenarios where very real trauma is used as a prop. The series flagrantly flaunts its unwillingness to get with the times, and the people involved should really know better.
See, I just, like a prop, like...
And that was almost in response to the episode we just watched, Sonnie's Edge. And they were talking specifically about how the main character was gang raped, and they just used that as a prop, is what they were claiming.
Right. Well, I mean, so for starters, props are items.
Yeah.
This would be a plot device.
Yeah.
So I don't know who wrote that article, but yes,
DigitalSpy.com.
it was used as a plot device, but it was also used in a way. Now, I would say it's subtext, because she doesn't elaborate enough. Like this they packed so much into... Are we going into the episode?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go into the episode.
Sonnie's Edge.
So they packed so much into this one episode that most of it's just subtext.
Yeah.
Like the fight with the monsters is like the primary part of this episode.
Sure.
So the little bit that she says to the other female chick that's coming in trying to seduce her
At the end.
is where you get all of the talk about, you know, the gang rape and stuff. And
yeah, you get a little bit at the beginning of the episode with the supporting female character.
yeah, with what does she say? What they did to her.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not
it
even
was like they just talked about. They didn't specifically mention rape, but they mentioned that the guys, the group of guys, the gang of guys, whatever, mutilated her.
right.
So
She does later say rape, though.
later she does say
Yeah.
rape, but in the first instance
No,
they don't
they
talk
don't.
about rape.
Yeah,
And
it's like taboo,
Implied,
so. Yeah.
but it's not explicitly said.
Yeah.
And when she does say the word rape, it's the other chick doesn't want to say it.
Yeah.
And our main female protagonist here is taking the power away from that word
For sure.
by just
Coming out and saying
it and not trying to dance around it like she was
Yeah.
trying to do. And I feel like what they were trying to do with the episode, which was mostly successful, was depict her in a manner that she isn't a victim of circumstance. Like, yes, a thing happened to her. Yes, she's dealt with it. Yes, she's moved on. Don't define her by that.
Yeah.
Which is already, I will agree, a controversial outlook that if someone who is still in some sort of victim mindset, which, I mean, I'm sure it is a very victimizing thing to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not making light of it, but someone who is in that victim mindset is going to struggle to understand why that character was written that way. But, good intentions, I do believe, were the point of showing this character being this strong and trying to be still a strong figure in other people's eyes, even though people just keep pitying her.
Yeah.
Now, that is a lot to cram into 17 minutes of an episode where you spend 10 minutes on a fight scene.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did notice that as well. And like even when you do get a little bit of dialogue from the main protagonist, Sonnie, she talks about how everybody just assumes that's her main motivation is
Hatred.
her trying to get back at everybody else. She's like, yeah, that's the story they all spin and the story they all say. She's like, but that's not why I really do it. She likes the thrill of the kill, essentially.
Yeah.
Is what she comes out and tells the other woman she's trying to seduce in the scene.
Yeah, she's a huntress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what'd you feel about the episode, Sarah?
Sonny's a badass.
Yeah?
Yeah, I liked her. I like that she couldn't be bought. Like, he was throwing obscene dollar signs at her, and I was like, hey, if you just throw this fight, this could all be yours. And she's like, it's not about the money. It's about the principle.
Well, arguably, with the reveal at the end, if she had thrown the fight, she would have died.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, it's not revealed at the beginning, but yeah, I definitely, going back and watching it in subsequent? Is that the word?
Yeah, subsequent.
Yeah. Subsequent views and watching it again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that's like, oh, well, of course she can't be bought because it's literally
her
buying
body.
her life. Yeah, you can't just, I'm not going to throw away my life for money I'm never going to see.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I always thought that was interesting too. I also, I really love the way this episode looks. I love the art style. I think it's very well animated.
Like the graffiti almost, kind of,
Yeah.
like body art and stuff.
Yeah, I really like the graffiti. Apparently, that's just an aesthetic I'm into now.
Yeah.
Because I really like that with Into the Spider-Verse. I really loved all the graffiti in that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. Like, it's neat to look at.
Yeah.
I also
That music video.
oh yeah, there was the League of Legends.
It's like a K-pop mashup
K-pop
thing.
music video that had a lot of
artist.
graffiti in it too, and I really liked that. Which also had the blacklight stuff, which was an aesthetic I liked in this.
Yeah, the UV.
The way they have the black lights and it like shows their tattoos or the body paint or whatever it is.
Yeah, I really a qualm with animation sometimes is like the lighting effects and the way they do lighting.
Yeah, that tends to be what makes it look bad is the lighting more than not.
Yeah. And I feel like in this particular episode they really took care to pay attention to where the shadows were and where the lighting was coming from.
Arguably a little easier to do because it was so dark throughout most of the episode.
Right.
But they did do a very good job of it, I feel.
But, like, all of the animation throughout this whole series is just freaking insane. Like, they look like real people.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
a lot of
you
them
can
do.
see the texture of their skin, like...
Yeah, there's a lot of
It's
episodes
insane.
that are just, like, crazy well animated.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they get the level of detail they do. It's crazy.
We're going to figure it out.
So what'd you guys think about the twist? I know this isn't your first time watching it, but try to think back to the first time you watched it. Did you see the twist coming?
Yeah.
Specifically talking to Sarah because she's the one person
saw Fight
I
Club
know
coming.
that constantly tries to call twists in movies.
Yeah.
We were literally like halfway through Fight Club and she's like, oh, okay, so they're the same person.
And he's
I'm like, how
"What
the fuck do you know that?
He thought
Okay.
I'd seen it first, but I had not ever seen it, hadn't heard about it.
That movie fucked me up so hard.
Really?
Yeah, like I didn't even
No,
like
I definitely saw it coming.
didn't even kind of see that coming when that movie came out. I was just like,
Same way with Girl
I
Gone.
watched it.
Or Gone
Gone
Girl.
Girl.
I always say that wrong.
Gone Girl, I was like, she's alive.
Yeah.
I didn't see how elaborate it was going to turn into,
That
but
bitch
I was
was
like, I'm pretty sure
sneaky.
she's still alive.
Yeah.
But Fight Club blew my fucking mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But-
that was one I watched years after, and I was like, even like I'd heard people talk about it, but miraculously, like 10 years after it came out, I never had it spoiled for me. So
Yeah.
when I watched it, I was like, oh fuck.
So I don't know that so Fight Club's one of my favorite movies ever. Mostly because of the minimalistic attitude that it carries, but we'll do a whole podcast on Fight Club at some point.
Sure.
However, I didn't necessarily see that twist coming when she stuck her through the face. So this is my first episode that I watched of Love, Death, and Robots.
Interesting. So yeah, that's something we talked about before, how it's a different order for everybody. This was my
Right.
second episode.
Yeah.
This was my first episode in the queue. So it being the first episode really set the tone for me on how the series was going to go.
Got you fucking hyped.
Yeah, because this episode, no holds bars. Like, they were talking about rape. There's fucking gratuitous violence. Like, she just
You
gets
saw
stabbed.
some titties?
Yeah, there's nudity. Like, she gets stabbed through the head.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she got stabbed through the head, I was like, okay. Then I was like, there has to be a twist. You're not going to kill your main character. Well, you might. We don't know anymore. And then when it happened, I was like, no. Like, fuck you. Because, like, so I was pissed the first time I watched it because I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, did you write yourself into a corner and then couldn't figure out a way out? So, she's the monster the whole time. But watching it this time around, I caught where the guy she says that she's just a couple of microprocessors. So we as the audience now have to make assumptions, which is something that I'm not keen on liking to do when I'm watching something.
I would argue a lot of episodes in this leave a lot to
Figure out yourself.
Interpretation.
Right. And part of that problem is, we're working with short story format,
like less than 20 minutes.
Yeah, less than 20-minute episodes. So while I get that, this entire episode is basically based on that twist. Like, all of the decisions she makes, like everything leading up to it, it's all meant to, like, deter you from that twist, but there's also no foreshadowing of that twist. And even watching it the second time around, I didn't catch any good foreshadowing.
Yeah, the closest they get to foreshadowing is during the fight scene. They constantly show the male fighter, like, coming in and out of the monster,
meditating.
and she's
Right.
just constantly, like, in the game, which you could interpret as her just being hyper focused, or the reality of the situation, she's not even in that body. That body's just a husk at this point.
Right. Okay, so dialogue foreshadowing, I guess, maybe should be the specification. Because you could consider that foreshadowing, and I understand that.
It's only foreshadowing after you know that the twist is coming.
Right. So you get to the twist, and it happens, and like I said, this time I caught the microprocessor thing, but it's still, even on a second watch, there's no added value to watching this a second time. While I like watching this episode because of how it looks and the monster fight is really fucking cool,
Yeah.
they didn't give a fuck about the dialogue until the last couple of minutes of the episode, is how I feel anyway, because
There really wasn't much dialogue until the last few minutes of it.
right, which is why every line that gets delivered needs to be important.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't, when you're working with this shorter story format, you shouldn't have throwaway
of
lines
fluff,
that don't
yeah.
matter. And I felt like there was quite a bit. Some of it was world building, but you're also like, we get it. You're in a world where there's a shadowy underground and you fight monsters. Like,
Yeah.
they didn't need the little tidbits of world building as much as they needed to develop characters and story inside of this was a 17-minute episode.
Yeah.
So I felt like the twist was just kind of, hey, caught you off guard.
Interesting. I really liked the twist. I remember my first time watching it, I was like, oh, fuck, she's dead now. And then I thought they were just going to end the episode with that.
Yeah.
And then it, like, slowly, it just, like, kept playing out. And then it turned into more and more. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I was, like, super hyped for it. Because I was all about, like, her being the big monster and coming in and just ultimately fucking shit up against these pricks.
Yeah. I like the twist idea. The execution of the story in the episode is what I have the issue with.
Sure. Sarah, how'd you feel?
I liked the twist ending.
Yeah.
But I also kind of saw it coming because, like, when she was walking through the corridor and stepping on the glass and, like, didn't even wince. Like, yeah, she's a bad bitch, but it's still gonna hurt. So I feel like that kind of gave it away that she wasn't actually in there and didn't have any feelings.
For the
or
very
anything.
first time you watched it, you knew something was up?
Yeah.
That's actually, yeah, that could be a bit of foreshadowing too. I didn't actually catch that.
Because she's walking through, stepped on the and you can see the blood, so she's actually bleeding.
Yeah, I definitely caught that scene. I just interpreted it as her being a badass. But yeah, you're right.
I mean-
That
Yeah.
could be a little bit of more foreshadowing.
I mean,
the body
you're gonna
doesn't
wince a little
actually
bit. I don't care how bad you are.
interpret pain or whatever.
Yeah. But, like, she didn't even wince. She just kept walking and then just stood there while bleeding out. And I was like, she can't be in there.
I also thought the speakers and her talking through the speakers was weird.
Yeah,
Like,
like how did that happen all
It
of a
was
sudden?
just, yeah, it was, I felt like they just needed
A mouth for her at
for
that
her,
point?
yeah, for her to be able to talk.
Yeah.
So
Was
they
it
were
coming
like,
through the monster's thing, though? Was it coming through the monster's tank
So
or
the
just,
way-
like, in the room around her?
Well, the speaker was in the room around her
Okay.
that the monster's tank was in.
It would have made more sense coming from the monster's tank.
And the way I interpreted that was it was almost like mid-transition from her going from the body back to the monster.
So, like, she just Bluetoothed herself out.
Yeah, more or less. Because, like, the way they kind of set it up is because, I mean, they have the monster fights. And when they have the monster fights,
Yeah, it's like the
presumably
little
the way the technology works
VR
is
chip thing.
they go into the monster's body and start controlling it, and then they do the fight, but then the monster dies, but the person's still alive.
Right.
So they presumably get booted out of the monster's body and back into their own body when the monster dies.
Yeah.
Arguably, Sonnie is the other way around because she actually exists within the monster,
Yeah.
not the human. So she's remoting into the human to walk around, and then whenever the human body died, she got booted back into the monster.
Okay.
And I just assumed that technology was good enough for her to essentially Bluetooth out to the speakers to
Again, yeah.
speak through the mind telepathically, I guess, because the monster itself probably doesn't have vocal cords to talk like a person,
It can growl.
arguably.
But yeah, it's like what Russell said, though. Like, you have to assume a lot.
Yeah. But
yeah,
I
which is
also
just
feel
something
like
I'm not fond of doing.
if they didn't have her continue to speak through the speakers, if they didn't have that, let's say they cut that out, and it was just the monster killing them,
Could have been like the.
I would assume that it was the monster getting vengeance for the killing of its master.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
You
I
wouldn't
just
know. Yeah,
You
They
would know that
could've-
they were one and the same.
true.
yeah, they could have just done something or included something to explain. Like
Something
they
else.
could have explained the twist better. Like instead of her, like as soon as she stabbed her through the head or something, then like the monster starts growling or whatever, and then
Oh, yeah.
the growls are interpreted through some machine instead of just the assumption that she's somehow Bluetoothed to the.
But then I feel like during the fight, the fighter would have to, like, get some kind of, like, hurt, you know? So, like, they're connected. So, like, the fighter would have to be worn down as well as the monster. For the
Physically,
monster
or-
to. Yeah, like, for the monster to feel her getting stabbed, you know? Like, I feel like it would have to go both ways. Like, she can feel what the monster's
Because the fighter
getting,
doesn't
get
presumably
anything.
doesn't feel pain.
So I feel like it would have to be both ways. Like, if the monster dies, then I feel like the person gets, like, worn down.
And you never see the male fighter actually experience any pain. He
Yeah.
just gets pissed off
Yeah.
that he's losing or
Yeah,
whatever.
and
Yeah.
gets pissed at his teammates. So I feel like in order for the monster to feel what the human, like, it would have to go both ways to make
Yeah,
sense.
they would have to establish that earlier on.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like this episode. I
It's a good
thought
one.
this is one of my like top 5 favorite episodes, probably.
Not my top 5.
Interesting. Yeah, I really like this one. Like, which was kind of unfortunate because it was literally my second one.
Yeah.
So like watching this for the first time on Netflix, I probably watched my top 5 episodes as the first 5 episodes.
It's definitely in my top 15.
Out of how many of them
18
are there?
episodes.
18. Yeah. So there's, which arguably there's like 3 or some that are just throwaway garbage episodes.
Right.
but you didn't like this one that much at all.
No, I mean it's probably in my top 10.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I was just joking.
I'm trying to remember all the episodes. Like, I like a lot of them.
Yeah, they're all really good.
Yeah.
Which I think at that note, we should probably get ready to do the next one.
Let's
Do
do
it.
it.
The Witness.
All right, so we just watched The Witness. First impressions, Sarah, go.
I like it, but I don't. Like,
Elaborate.
I feel like it was predictable.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of they show you stuff at the beginning to make it that way.
Yeah, but also, like, if you watch at the very beginning, she wakes up next to a man. The man she wakes up next to is the dude she's shooting. You can tell by the hair.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't catch that.
yeah.
Like, I've seen this probably 3 or 4 times now, and I've never caught that.
When she gets up, you can see a dude in the back, and he's got, like, the quiffed hair and everything. So, like, it's from the very beginning, like, fucked up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Russell?
Listen, man. This is an art piece. Now, the whole thing is actually based on a relationship, right?
Okay.
So you have two people who are stuck together forever. I fucking hate this episode. All right. So, legitimately making a joke, but I do kind of think they were going for, like, this being, like, the artsy episode.
Yeah.
It was definitely more artsy than the other ones.
Yeah, like, so, and I like the aesthetic. I like the way it looks. I like the graphics, the animation.
Yeah.
I enjoy
Which was
that.
like a surreal with almost like a cell shaded overlay on it.
Yeah.
Don't know what that means, but sure.
It was like realistic animation, right?
Yeah.
And then they had like the bold lines overlaying on top of it,
yeah,
cell shaded to make it almost look like a comic book.
Yeah.
Or there's a video game called Borderlands
I know
that
what
is
you're talking about,
very
yeah.
heavy in the cell shaded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, trying to make it almost look like a comic book.
And it had like when she drops her shoes, it has like the pow
And the
Yeah.
clank and the bang. and
noises
all that
for-
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like there's no story.
No.
Now, this time I did notice, I said snake at the beginning when we started watching it, but it's actually the snake that eats its own tail, so it's Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Which is a symbol for infinity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or, caught up in a loop.
A loop. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously they're stuck in some sort of loop where one kills one and then that kills the other one, and
Yep.
then there's no breaking point. I feel like there is probably a lot we could sit here and interpret,
Uh-huh.
but just because we can interpret it does not make it a good story. I don't understand. But this one was what, 11 minutes?
11 or 12, yeah.
So we have some of these that are like 17 minutes long is like the longest one. So clearly there wasn't a lot of restraint on how long the episode could be.
In general for the series, yeah, no, they're all over the place.
Yeah. So,
But you could have added on like another half of an episode, pretty much.
yeah, literally another half of this episode.
Yeah.
So what I don't understand is how this episode, how they looked at this episode and thought it was finished.
Yeah.
Like the only dialogue is like her calling 911, and then she's looking for Vladimir,
Yeah. And drag
and
queen.
then he the entire time was
Wait,
like, no,
stop.
wait.
We need to
Which
talk.
I bet if the episode would have repeated, it would be her saying, no, wait, because
Right.
but
she
then
has to explain herself.
yeah, and you have to assume that once you've been killed in this universe, this setting or whatever,
Uh-huh.
that you lose whatever memory you had before.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you're not the same individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
So-
you've respawned.
Yeah. Which I don't want to interpret it. I don't want to have to do that. Like, I want you to tell me a fucking story.
Sure.
Paint me a pretty picture.
So yeah, this is
Frank.
actually 16
Oh.
on my list of 1 out of 18.
Yeah, I don't care for this one either. I don't think it's as bad as some of the other ones. There's other episodes in this series that are way, way worse. I can appreciate this one.
I don't like the Hitler one.
Yeah,
It's
that
stupid.
one's real bad. I can appreciate this as a more artistic piece, as you were kind of mockingly starting into. I can appreciate it from that standpoint and recognize that the art style at least works for what it's trying to do.
Right.
I'm just not a big fan of the story they are telling.
Yeah.
Which your argument is that there is no story. I would say the story is just the cyclical nature of what's going on, and it's all supposed to be like very surreal. And it's like, okay, she saw him kill somebody, but she doesn't know who, so she's running because she thinks that he's coming to kill her as a witness, to kill off any witnesses, but he's going after her because she witnessed, but also because she looks exactly like the person he just killed.
Right.
And then they just repeat that over and over again, which is story enough for me. I don't know what other story elements you would add to that narrative
Like, why?
or how it got started.
Yeah. I mean,
I-
literally. Like, so, I mean, one of the points of telling a story, there's also, like, no moral. Like, there's no... There's nothing. Like, there's nothing to this fucking episode. So the biggest thing that bothers me about it is, like, there's nothing to take away from it. Like, okay.
There's no
They're-
moral or anything.
yeah, they're like
to
in
Can
a
I
time
have that
loop.
11 minutes back, please?
Yeah, well, 22,
Yeah.
because Corey made me watch this episode again.
Twice. Yeah. Yeah. This is my third time.
But there's just nothing, like, if it would have been, like, you literally could have turned it in, like, another 5 minutes, you would have had enough time to add dialogue that would have turned it into, like, at least something you could dissect in a manner where you could walk away from it going, oh, it was about being caught up in an abusive relationship and how hard it is to escape. Or how hard it
Damn.
is to be in a... like, the whole thing does kind of remind me of a relationship, but that's where I would have taken the story. That's the why and how and what I would have walked away with if I was writing it.
Okay.
So
And the only thing they actually add credit to that is what Sarah caught at the very beginning,
Right.
and is easily missable because I haven't
didn't
caught
see
that, and this is my 4th or 5th time watching it.
yeah. So, with it's just there's not, I like a moral or like a reason at least, like,
Yeah.
and if it was you could have easily added the dialogue, and then you would be watching something and then taking away something at the end, because, like, all I'm doing at the end of this is going, what the fuck did I just watch?
Yeah. Like, they
Like-
both could have been laying there in bed asleep having this dream about each other and then wake up and discuss it like, hey, where do you think this is going?
That would have
Or-
been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Or just show them wake up. Like,
Yeah.
they don't even have to show the discussion,
and they, like,
but just
wake
show
up,
them wake up
and they're
together.
facing each other, and then they roll away because they're, like, mad at each other.
Yeah, right there. We
Boom.
fixed it in less than 30 seconds.
New ending! Woo!
I actually like that, and I also like where you took it, Russell, with the struggle of it being to get out of an abusive relationship and how
Yeah, I did
difficult
like
it
that
can
too.
be, and this would be
Yeah.
like a perfect representation of that, but they don't include anything to lend to that.
Yeah,
narrative.
anything
Yeah.
more. Like, because he's chasing her and he's like, no, wait, I'll change. It won't be like that next time. And it's a cycle.
Yeah,
So, like, it's not going to be like that next time.
Mhm.
But then, like, you also have her next time. And, like, she's still mad about the stuff from before. So then it flips and she becomes the abusive one.
yeah, because women can
And
be
then-
just as abusive as
Oh,
men.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Whether it be physical or
Emotional.
or
emotional.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, just you spent 11 I don't know how many months you spent animating this episode to not add a couple more minutes of some sort of explanation on what the fuck we're watching. Like, I would have also been okay if they were like, oh, like a demon shows up at the end and he's like, you're in
Fucking with them
purgatory.
both. Yeah.
Like, fucking anything.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me because the only thing that I got that somewhat explains this episode doesn't come from the episode itself. It comes.
Which I also have a problem with.
Yes, yeah, I agree. It comes from the description of the episode on Netflix.
Oh, I didn't even read that.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
says, after seeing a brutal murder, a woman flees from the killer through the streets of a surreal city. And that's the description of the episode. And just by the mere fact that they include surreal city, to me, clues in that the whole fucking city's this way. And as I've watched the episode after reading that, if you look throughout the city, it all very much is like very surreal, and it all looks
Right.
pretty much the same and lends towards a dreamlike setting, as you were talking about, Sarah, or even a purgatory setting, as you were talking about, Russell.
Mm-hmm.
But it all leads towards it not really being real,
Yeah.
or at least having some kind of supernatural circumstances in this.
Right.
And I don't know that you should be getting that from the description of an episode.
No.
Yeah, you shouldn't be getting your answers from a 2-sentence synopsis on Netflix. No,
Yeah.
you should not.
It should all be in the episode, which, granted, you could probably gather that much from watching the episode.
Yeah.
But it also, like, just the pure fact that they mentioned the city is what clued me in, like, oh, maybe the whole city's fucked up like
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
And this is just, this universe is just all very fucked up and surreal like this.
Yeah.
But again, that's just me interpreting stuff based off of
Yeah,
what I
there's-
can get from
There's
it.
actually a Netflix series you can watch instead of watching this episode called Russian Doll. Have you
Haven't
watched
seen
it?
But I've seen previews for it.
So, like, it is far better. It's also like 10 episodes, but it's really good and handles some of the things that we just talked about in a non-cartoon format. But I'm sure I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, Russian Doll, better than this episode.
Don't watch this episode.
Don't watch this
Russian
episode.
Doll.
Spend 11 minutes starting to watch Russian Doll.
Okay.
You can get halfway through the first episode of that.
Something else I wanted to add was,
Hit me.
out of all the apartments, she picks his. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like that has to do with, like, her being familiar with the place. Like, she knows it, but she doesn't know it.
Yeah.
Like,
It
it's
would
hers,
lead
but-
into that narrative of a dream sequence better.
Yeah, because she locks the door and he has the fucking key to it.
He
So
has
of
the
course
keys.
it's his apartment.
Yeah.
Of
But
all
it's
the apartments.
it's also like a different building because the body's not there.
Right.
So it's a different building, a different apartment, but yet he still has the key because
But
it's
She
quote
also
unquote
called
his.
it the Blue Harrington or whatever. I was like, that's like a red herring, kind of.
Yeah, like a
Like, I
mislead.
feel like they were,
Yeah.
So yeah, which the mislead for me was the twist I saw coming was she just witnessed her own murder, which she essentially did.
Yeah.
But I thought the movie or the show, the episode, was going to end with her dying, not her killing him.
Which honestly would have made more fucking sense.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she witnessed her own murder, and then the path that
And
she
then it
was on
happened.
ended up leading her to her own murder.
hmm
Okay, whatever.
Like it was like a premonition or something, maybe?
Yeah, and if you're worried about the gratuitous violence against women, write the episode the other way around where he witnesses her murder. That's what I want to see. I want to see some more female serial killers.
So, since you brought it up, let's talk about that article and stuff that I've been reading. It's not just the one. There's a couple. And I've seen people on Twitter talk about the show when it first came out, and they were all kind of in the same vein. It's not everybody. Not
Right.
everybody feels the same way about the show. I really like the whole series. But this episode is another one of the standout episodes that they specifically call out in that article I was reading.
About the violence.
Yes, the hyperviolence against women, and then they specifically talk about the nudity in this episode, which is crazy to me. In a sense, I agree that this whole episode is very hypersexualized.
Oh yeah,
The entire episode is
which could also
very-
lead to the dreamlike.
Yes,
Yeah.
So
arguably so. So we're
'Cause
just
she's-
really hammering in on we should have ended it this way.
Yeah.
Call us if you need ideas.
yeah,
We
no,
got
for
you,
sure.
guy.
Because she goes to the club where she's supposed to be dancing at, which is erotic. So you have an erotic dancer,
Mm-hmm.
and in this article they're saying that she's hypersexualized.
Yeah. Their specific problem in this
Yeah.
article was that she was naked and being ogled all over, and like he was. So the way they have it listed here is what then ensues is a frantic chase through the city streets in which we are led to a BDSM club tucked away inside another building. It's here where the series really commits to its adult NSFW promise. There are people dressed in black PVC gimp suits dotted around the room, and the woman, who we quickly realize is an adult performer, reemerges and performs a routine on a couch in which she is entirely naked, the camera voyeuristically honing in on every inch of her. The murderer, meanwhile, remains fully clothed, and he does so throughout the episode, as the majority of the men in the series do. So their problem with this episode specifically was that the guy was fully clothed, which I will argue that, well, yeah, he was kind of fully clothed, he was also getting a blowjob on the couch.
From a dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know that
the one
was a
on top
dude.
making out with him was a girl. And the other one, I mean, he might not have been a dude, but he had a very dude-like shape to him, as in he didn't have any breasts. So, and he's in a gimp
Androgynistic.
suit. He's very androgynistic, so I'm going to assume he's a dude. I would say, though, they did have a chance. They did have the perfect chance to put a big old floppy dick in this episode, and they didn't do it. Where she goes and she finds Vladimir. He's obviously naked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see Bush.
Yeah.
But there's no real detail to his floppy dick. And since his name's Vladimir, I'm going to assume he's Russian.
Got a third.
And then I'm going to furthermore
Also,
assume...
he's Russian because in the subtitles it literally said speaking in a Russian accent.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to furthermore assume that since he's Russian, he's probably packing a massive dong. So we could have seen a nice, big 12-inch floppy cock. So I
feel so.
Or an erect cock because he was like passed out.
Well, he looked like he was on a lot of drugs.
He was,
It probably wasn't
on
going
a
to be
fucking
erect.
bender. Yeah.
He might have took some Viagra in with those drugs.
Probably.
I would say I bet the reason they didn't want to show his big old floppy cock is because it would have came off more like a joke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which is something we've complained about.
Yeah.
Cocks are not funny.
So yes, they could have added more dick to this episode.
I think, so you're saying they could have added the dick with Vladimir? I think they could have added it with the guy being chased. When he like pushes the person off that's giving him a blowy, just have his dick be out.
Yeah.
And then have him zip up and put it away to go chase after her.
Yeah. I think that would borderline softcore porn, though. And I think that's actually another reason we don't see a lot of erections, and they're mostly floppy dicks, is because there's a big difference between, NSFW, TV-14, mature rating, and straight-up softcore porn. So, I mean, her already seeing the gimp blowing the dude was kind of, but it's very quick, and
My argument for that is there's literally another episode in the series that shows people having sex. That is already softcore porn.
Which is definitely softcore porn. Okay, you are correct. We should have seen the killer dude's floppy dick, too. We could have had 2 floppy dicks and 1 naked chick, and no one would be upset.
2 to 1 and
like
nobody
specifically
could be
the
mad.
episode Beyond the Aquila Rift, which I don't think we've talked about yet.
No.
Spoiler alert, there's a sex scene in that episode.
Yeah.
And it's very much softcore porn.
Yeah. Nope, I don't remember. You're right.
Yeah.
So they already did softcore porn, so why didn't they do it here?
This episode needed 2 dicks. 2 dicks, 1 chick.
I mean...
Even just 1 dick would have been fine.
Maybe not say it like that, but...
That is softcore porn, sorry.
I also appreciated that they included a drag queen in the episode. I'm not a big fan that the drag queen was
As vulgar.
the vulgarity didn't bother me. That the only time they show the drag queen or any kind of a gay person in the show is done in a hypersexualized nature, and I don't know that that's right. Because the people that I know that do drag, they don't do it for the sex. Like they just do it because they enjoy
like being
doing
a bad
it.
Bitch, yeah.
Yeah, it's
you
not
look fucking glamorous.
It's not a sexual
Don't step
thing
on
at
his
all
gown.
for most of them.
But I would also say, in an area like that and in a setting like that, what are the chances that a drag queen is going to be in that area?
True.
Also a fair point.
So, maybe it's just setting. Maybe it's lazy writing. There isn't really anything good about this episode. So, other than the art,
Yeah.
the animation, that shit was great.
It was,
Love that
I didn't like it at first. I've since come to have an appreciation for it. I think it was done very well, and I would be interested in seeing more stuff done that way. But I also wonder if it's just because I've seen other stuff done in a very similar art style that's been done very well, such as Into the Spider-Verse was very much cel-shaded 3D animation, along with some other stuff that's been done very well.
I kind of like some of the pop art stuff they did on Into the Spider-Verse. I think I kind of liked what they did with this a little bit better, as far as the animation style goes. Because, I don't know, I felt like none of this was really jarring, other than the parts that were supposed to be, with, the violence and the murder. That was a little jarring, but I felt like it's probably supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because it's, a fucking murder.
It was, jarring for effect. A lot of the episode I thought was jarring for effect, but again, that was part of the episode. They had 11 minutes or whatever, so. I don't know. Any final thoughts on this episode? I think all around we didn't really care for it as much as some of the others.
Accurate. Yeah, I didn't. It's good, but it's top 18.
It's like a shitty 90s music video.
Yeah.
Yeah? They're just missing the naked
I'm
old
just
man?
picturing Missy Elliott popping out.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Let me work it. She put her thing down, flipped it, and reversed it.
I mean, I should probably give a little bit more credit to music videos because they typically tell a story.
That's true.
Or at the very least, if they don't, it's not about that. It's about the music.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I'm just going to keep going if we don't.
No, we should probably wrap there and move on to the next one.
All right, let's do it.
Suits!
Get a check.
It needs to be rechecked every time I sit down at it.
Well, now we're rolling.
We're recording now?
Yep.
This is recording right now?
Right now.
Okay. So that was Suits. Sarah
Yeah.
originally was not excited to watch this one
No.
because she forgot how much she actually likes this episode.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell me how you feel about it.
I like it. The old lady's a badass.
Yeah?
She's awesome.
I think this is an instance of...
Looking into your future, because I'm going to be a badass.
No. I was going to say this is female empowerment done right in the series.
Yeah, she was just one of the guys.
There's
kick
no...
ass.
I don't see any arguments in this episode that fulfill their side of... what the articles and everything I've seen people talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a prime example of female empowerment.
Because, even the farmers' wives that stayed back were still badasses.
Yeah, they were there was the one older woman that was in the mech and was
Mel.
super gun-ho about everything, and she was just this huge badass. Our first introduction to her is...
Squashing
Excuse me. Yeah, it's squashing the bugs, and she has a pile of 50 to 100 of them behind her.
Mm-hmm.
So you already introduced her as a badass. But even as you said, the farmers' wives could hold their own just the same.
Yeah.
You know, they're out back, working with a shotgun and working the home defenses, and they're every much as a badass as the guys out in the mechs in the field.
Yep.
Russell, do you have thoughts?
I really like this episode.
It's a good episode.
It has a beginning, a middle, an end that's cohesive.
No assumptions.
Yeah, there's no assumptions to be made. I mean, halfway through the episode, you're kind of wondering what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
And you're kind of led, it kind of looks like a portal.
Yeah, so that was
Right?
something I wanted to talk about. A little personal twist for me is I thought this was like a portal from another dimension,
Yeah.
and these were interdimensional beings coming in to invade, and
Yeah.
they were just on Earth or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, you have the slight twist that, oh no, they're on an alien planet, and this is a sanctuary they have set up.
I thought that both times I watched it. Because I forgot that it zoomed out at the end, and
Yeah,
then
me
when
too.
it did it this time, I was like, "Oh yeah,
Oh,
fuck! I
yeah.
love this episode."
Yeah.
'Cause I was like, "Oh, this episode's cool." Oh no, I really like this episode, and as the dialogue keeps rolling, because the dialogue in this episode, man,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
it's fucking fantastic. So let's talk about the Scarecrow.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Right, the Scarecrow is my favorite thing in this episode because he talks about it in the beginning. And he's like, "Oh, this fucking ugly ass scarecrow."
Eyesore piece of shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jake got me. And then he says in the beginning, he's like, she's like, "Well, we'll just take it out." And he's like, "I tried. The fucking thing won't budge."
Yeah.
Right, very beginning of the episode, opening dialogue, first like 7 or 8 lines.
Yep.
And then he says, so Jake is working on his mech when he gets the call.
Mhm.
Well, he's actually sleeping, but his
Yeah,
wife thinks he's
right,
working
yeah.
on it. And she's like, "You're no Michelangelo." And he
Mhm.
delivers what's probably my favorite line in
Mine too.
this episode when he says, "No, I'm more like a Da Vinci because I got to worry about the aesthetic and the mechanics."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which
his
is a
scarecrow,
solid Da Vinci call out.
yeah,
yeah.
for sure. And his scarecrow isn't pretty,
No.
but it's effective
It is.
in a different way.
In an
Maybe-
unexpected way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is how half of Da Vinci's stuff
Came to
became
be.
effective
True.
years after he died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought the whole thing with the scarecrow is just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Scarecrow's good. I really love the whole way the whole episode looks. I think it's very well animated. I like the art style for this one.
I love this art style,
It's like-
especially with a more mature theme attached.
Yeah, it's like cartoony, but still,
For adults.
yeah, still very mature. Which I wouldn't say that there's any episodes in this that are
Kid
really
friendly.
child appropriate. But yeah, this one does have a more cartoony look as opposed to some of the others are bordering on realism a bit more.
Yeah.
And I really like that aesthetic for this one.
Also the biracial aspect of it.
You mean the interracial couple?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that too.
Me too.
Like there's an interracial couple and it's just not even a thing.
Nope.
And I appreciate that. I think that's the way it should be. Is like
Yeah.
they should just pepper that in as a
Yeah.
normal
As
thing.
often as they can.
Not
Yep.
every couple has to be interracial couple because there's a lot of couples that aren't.
Yeah.
You know, myself included in that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I like that it's represented in a completely normal way,
I didn't even realize it till you guys talked about it.
which
Yeah.
is great, right?
Yeah. Like it just she
Mhm.
just fit
Like
right
it
in,
shouldn't
like
be
it
a
wasn't
thing.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, who the fuck was the interracial couple?
Yeah.
It was the main
oh,
couple.
it's the main couple.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. I'm digging it.
Yeah. I like that. I was like, that's cool.
Especially in a more rural setting.
That's what
Like
I
it's a
was
space setting.
Yeah.
But it's also it's set up to be very rural and
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like we are all from a rural environment, you know,
Mhm.
rural Indiana. And there really aren't a whole lot of interracial couples. I mean, we definitely know several. And it's a very much a thing in everyday life, as it should be.
Yeah.
You know, there should never be any hang-ups about that.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's nice that they're able to still show that in a rural setting.
And like
and
people
it's-
don't even think anything of
nobody
it now.
bats an eye, and
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
a thing at
It's
all.
fantastic.
And I really appreciate that.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I don't know
eventually
why I said
that's-
biracial. I meant interracial.
Eventually, that's the level I'd like to get on with representation of the
LGBTQ
Yes.
community.
Yeah.
Q plus community.
very much so. I very much think it should just be a normal thing where it's just included and that's just part of
You
it.
shouldn't
And-
have to warn people like, oh, this is going to be in there. Just do it.
Well, not even the warning part. Like it should just be just a normal thing. Like they should just be shown
Mhm.
as a thing. I don't know that it should be built
shouldn't
up
be, like,
as a momentous
Shoved in
occasion.
your face to make it be like, look what we did. We put a gay couple.
Yeah,
in
look
our
how
sitcom."
inclusive we are.
Yeah.
It should just be just a thing. It
Yeah.
should just be a normal thing.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. In-game caught a lot of flack about having the homosexual guy that was in therapy with Cap at towards the very
Oh,
beginning.
yeah, talking about his husband.
Yeah, he was talking
Or the
about the
guy
date
that
he
he was
went on
dating, yeah.
with the guy and how they both broke down about people they lost, the loved ones they lost. And it was actually one of the directors that was that character. And a lot of the flack they've been getting is that they didn't like that the director took the part, which
Why does that matter? Ben
the
Affleck produces half the movies he's in. So
well, the idea was that he took a potential role away from a gay actor.
Oh.
I guess the idea being that if he hadn't done that role, they could have gave the role to a struggling gay actor.
Mm.
Yes, they could have, but at the same time,
If you're a
I
good
don't have
actor,
any
it
problem
shouldn't
with him
matter.
being in that role.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of people were upset that this was the first inclusion of that, and that it
Like,
was
why wait
just
so
such
long?
a side note in the show. But I really appreciated that it was just a
tastefully
side
done.
note.
Yeah. it
Like
just should
I
be.
don't want their first inclusion to just be this big monumentous thing.
Mhm.
But
It should
that's
just be
like a whole
considered norm
tangent.
now.
Yeah, it should just be a normal thing, which is where I think we should get with all media.
Yeah.
It's where I would like to see it go.
Agreed.
But to get back to this, suits.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the mechs. They all looked really cool. I like that they were all different and customized.
Yes.
With the
And,
way go ahead.
The Mel, she was on all fours, and the other guys were upright, like
They
a
were bipedal,
transformer.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, she's crawling around like a little animal. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, they were all different and custom to what they want, almost as if they had just built them themselves.
Which I'm sure they did.
Which is a very much a rule thing. Guys
I
are all the
fix it
time
myself.
fixing their own tractors and fixing their own equipment and everything. So coming from a rural community, that definitely is something that guys would do. I mean, we know all kinds of guys that are all about their trucks and fixing their trucks up and throwing all kinds of parts and making their trucks look cool and bigger and badder or what have you. So that's
louder.
yeah, definitely a thing. But yeah, I really like that. I also really liked that the death in this show was meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a martyr.
It
for his own
wasn't.
cause.
It wasn't just a throwaway that it didn't feel like they were killing somebody because they felt like they had to.
Yeah.
It was an actual his death had impact, and it had
Saved
impact
them all,
for the rest of
potentially.
the episode too.
Yeah.
The emotions are high in this episode,
Very
and
much so.
it's good. It's good
I
stuff.
really appreciated that.
I like the heroic moment that follows, or that is a little bit before that, where the other guys come in, and drop the ammo, and
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the drones come in, drop the ammo, and then he goes and reloads, and then they're
Yeah.
like, "Go away, get out of here, save yourself!" And then he comes back in and
Yeah,
saves
he's
them.
Like, I'm not
Yeah.
letting you guys do this by yourself. Even though he was scared most of the time and was like,
Yeah.
they said we can head back. Let's head back.
Yeah.
And then he grew a pair.
And then even Mel, the crazy female, was like, "And they say I'm crazy," because
Yeah,
he comes
she
back
was
in and guns
giving
a
him
blazing, and
Major attaboy. Yeah.
yeah, I really liked this episode. I thought it was really well done.
it's good stuff. I like the alien design.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of Xenomorphs from the actual Alien series.
Yeah, they're kind of like a weird xenomorph, Halo-esque Covenant
A little bit, yeah.
type mix vibe. But I like that they didn't. I like that the large one that comes in at the end is the same design as the smaller ones, because
It's just a bigger one.
yeah, it's easy. So there's the queen,
Yeah.
we know how hive minds work, and they're usually based off of a monarchy type, hive mind type thing. So then the queen comes in, and she's fucking ginormous, and she's ready to smash and eat.
Or you assume the queen could just be a bigger brawler type.
I feel like it was Commander in Chief, final boss, here to fuck you up.
No.
Yeah, at least a queen of some
Yeah.
sort or something like that. One
Yeah.
of the producers of the smaller ones.
But yeah, I thought it was really good, and I definitely thought it was interesting when they have the zoom out on the end, because the whole time watching it, going back to, I thought it was very much interdimensional kind of stuff, but it's just nope, these are people that decided
Yeah.
to try to colonize this inhospitable planet, and
And when I was watching it, I was like, man, this is like Phil's Lovecraftian, but with aliens. And then it wasn't Lovecraftian, it was just aliens.
Yeah.
I also like how at one point in time you think both of the wives like lost their significant other. Like
Yeah.
it tugs on your heartstrings a little bit.
Yeah, you're not
Right there.
like
Jake is definitely dead, but like
I've
she thought she shot
Hank,
her husband
the main
too.
guy. Yeah, I thought he was dead, like actually dead, until he showed up holding the beer.
Especially
at the
when
very
like the coffee mug like rolls out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh god, he was holding that. He's
Which that
definitely
was,
dead.
that was the effect they were going for. They
Right.
wanted you to think he was dead,
Yeah.
but I just went with it because this series has, if nothing else, shown that they're not afraid of death. I mean, it's in the title.
Yeah. Grr, Martin, eat your heart out.
If he directed it, everybody would have died.
Actually,
Aliens would have won.
Yeah. Fuck Hank.
So at first I thought you just growled at George R. R. Martin,
No.
and then I realized.
Grr.
Grr, Martin. Yep. So unless you guys have any other final closing statements for this one, I think we're ready to move on to the next.
Final closing statement.
Go for it.
This was far more enjoyable than The Witness.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And that's all, folks.